Kelly Towles is one of 4 local artists paid by NoMa's Business Improvement District to create posters for their Wear a Mask campaign.
Putting a good message out there and showing that, we can come together.
That process is going to start of taking down those fences. And I already saw signs reminding people of social distancing when they do get to come and enjoy this green space in Northeast DC. This is just off of New York Avenue here in the Northeast.
The stars of Blue Sky Puppet Theater are having fun with local kids, doing storytelling, games, and singing, all from a distance on Zoom, of course. I caught up with the president of the NoMa Business Improvement District, whose team came up with this idea. Families from all over can tune in to this special story hour every Monday night from 7 to 7:30. It runs through the fall.
Good afternoon. I'm Brig Bunker, Chairman of the NoMa Bid Board of Directors. Welcome to our 2021 annual meeting. Recover, Reconnect, Reinvigorate is the theme we've chosen for this year's meetings. And today we'll be highlighting how the bid is supporting each of these 3 initiatives, all of which are well underway in NoMa. You might notice that we did not include reopen in our theme. This is intentional because NoMa never closed, instead demonstrating remarkable resilience. Even during the height of the pandemic, NoMa streets remained cautiously active, with residents out walking their dogs, shopping for daily essentials, and supporting local restaurants and their workers by ordering takeout meals to enjoy at home. And as the pandemic wore on, NoMa continued to prove its resilience. Construction progressed at a rapid pace, new businesses opened their doors, and new residents moved into the neighborhood. While other areas of the city struggled to recover, the lesson being reinforced every day in NoMa is that true mixed-use communities with the right balance of office, residential, and retail tenants are resilient to challenges like those we've been facing. So today we're here to celebrate the resilience that the NoMa community has demonstrated over the past year as we look forward to the future. With free vaccines now available to anyone in the district over the age of 16, I remain optimistic for what lies ahead. The bid is ready to reconnect the community and reinvigorate the neighborhood to assure that NoMa continues to be a driver of inclusive economic growth, not only in Northeast Washington, but for the entire District of Columbia. To that end, we are honored to have an outstanding lineup of speakers and guests join us today to talk about not a return to normal, but a better normal, and how NoMa is poised for a post-pandemic boom. It's my privilege to introduce our keynote speaker, Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton, to share with us her thoughts on 3 issues very relevant to NoMa: stimulus, statehood, and Union Station. Please join me in welcoming Congresswoman Norton.
Thank you and NoMa Bid.
Wonderful.
For this invitation to speak at your 2021 annual meeting. I'm really pleased at how NoMa has flourished as a neighborhood over the past few years, in no small part due to the persistent efforts of NoMa Bid and countless other stakeholders here in the district. NoMa is a neighborhood characterized by grit. I still remember that more than 15 years ago, I fought to get federal funds to open the new Metro Avenue metro station there. And once we got that, I fought to get the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives to relocate its headquarters to the neighborhood. Now, the Department of Justice has moved into the neighborhood too. What we saw then was potential. And what we see today is that potentiality finally realized. It is a testament to the strength of the neighborhood and its people that NoMa has proven resilient in the face of the incredible health and economic challenges over the past year during the pandemic. The streets are humming, the construction cranes keep multiplying, and businesses keep opening. It was growing DC neighborhoods like NoMa that I had in mind when I supported the American Rescue Plan Act, which was signed into law in March and provided $350 million in direct fiscal payments to states, cities, and counties to use as they see fit to respond to the coronavirus health and economic crisis. I ensured that the American Rescue Plan Act treated DC as a state, city, and county for fiscal relief, since DC provides each level of service. That's why we're on our way to statehood. We're already acting like a state. The bill also provides DC with $755 million in fiscal relief. The city was shortchanged in the CARES Act in March 2020, when the Trump administration and the Republican-led Senate deliberately treated DC as a territory instead of a state for fiscal relief, even though DC is almost always treated as a state for fiscal matters. In total, the American Rescue Plan Act will provide DC with $2.3 billion. I'll say that figure again. $2.3 billion in fiscal relief, in addition to other funding the district will receive for specific purposes, such as much needed rental assistance and education. In addition to getting DC the dollars it deserves, we have made unprecedented progress on statehood in the last 2 years. Last month, the House of Representatives passed my DC statehood bill. This was only the second time in history a chamber of Congress has passed the bill. The first was when the bill passed last year. As a result of House hearings, markups, and floor votes over the last 2 years, a record 54% of the American people now support DC statehood. I'm going to say that number again. 54%, that's more than a majority of the American people support DC statehood. President Biden also strongly supports the bill, and the Senate version of the bill has 45 co-sponsors. We expect the Senate to hold a hearing on the bill in the coming months. However, the bill faces 3 major hurdles in the Senate that I believe we can overcome. First, the filibuster, but that's on its last leg and was responsible for Democrats taking control over the Senate this year because the Senate had done nothing because of the filibuster. Second, opposition from Democratic Senator Joe Manchin. And third, 3 Democratic senators who have not yet taken a position on the bill. But I expect more Democrats to be added in the next election cycle. No Republicans support the bill, but I'm not worried about that. It only takes a majority vote to pass a statehood bill. Major legislation often takes years to pass, And I will continue to fight for statehood if we don't pass it this Congress, including by continuing to build public support for statehood, which, as I have said, is already up to 54%. As we work on statehood, I continue to push for an ambitious reimagination and reinvestment in the district as the second most senior Democrat on the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure and chair of its subcommittee on Highways and Transit. My top priority on that committee is Union Station, which would modernize the federally owned station's facilities through critical rail enhancements, improved bus facilities, and integrated safe pedestrian, bicycle, and multimodal access to create a world-class 21st century multimodal transportation hub. The Union Station expansion project will create thousands of union jobs and unlock billions of private investment. Proximity to public transportation is considered a significant marketed asset, with buyers and renters alike seeking to live in areas with access to public transportation options, which is great news for NoMa considering its proximity to Union Station. I've asked President Biden to include funding for Union Station's redevelopment in his fiscal year 2022 budget. Though the Federal Railroad Administration is still preparing its environmental impact statement that must be completed before any redevelopment there can occur. I did successfully push the Federal Railroad Administration to reconsider its plans for Union Station, especially for parking and buses. You may remember that its original plan called for 1,575 parking places, far higher than the 295 to maybe 375 recommended by the DC Office of Planning. That much planning would have made it harder. What the impact statement, the Railroad Administration had proposed would have made it harder to have space for revenue producing stores and restaurants and for safe pedestrian and bicyclist mobility. Successful completion of the Union Station expansion project would be a game changer for NoMa in particular, connecting neighborhoods more seamlessly, not only to other parts of DC, but to the country. So getting that Federal Railroad Administration reduction in parking is a major success for NoMa. These are just a few of the major projects I'm working on as your Congresswoman. We clearly have a lot of work forward too for NoMa and DC, but you can see that on NoMa in particular, we have made great progress in the past and expect to continue that in the next few years. Thank you for inviting me to speak on progress for NoMa and for the District of Columbia at your meeting today.
Well, thank you, Congresswoman Norton. We are buoyed by your passion and your commitment to ensure that the residents of Washington, D.C. have equal representation. We appreciate all you do directly for NoMa and for the people of the district. We commend and support your unwavering advocacy to improve this great city of ours. Thank you.
Thank you.
On that same note, we're honored to hear today from Councilmember Kenyan McDuffie, who represents part of NoMa and with whom the BID has partnered with on many projects. We're grateful for his ongoing support and look forward to our continued work together to ensure NoMa remains a welcoming neighborhood where residents thrive and businesses flourish. Due to council schedules, Councilmember McDuffie could not join us live today, but he did record this video message and asked us to share it with you.
Hi, I'm Ward 5 Councilmember Kenyan McDuffie, and I wanted to take this opportunity to thank Maura and the entire NoMa Bid team, including the board, for all the work that they've been doing. This last 15 months has impacted us in so many different ways, more ways than we can imagine. We have literally seen businesses throughout the corridors that include NoMa really hurt during this pandemic. We've seen people struggle during this pandemic. But the one thing that I'm convinced of and that I've appreciated seeing over the last 15 months is really the level of resiliency in our people, in our businesses, and in the broader community throughout the District of Columbia. NoMa Bid has been so instrumental into really providing that support, encouragement, and the level of optimism that I think we need to be able to recover, reconnect, and reinvigorate. The recovery is so important because there are people who are getting vaccinated more and more throughout our community. And as that confidence comes back, we need those businesses to continue to open back up, and we need them to rehire our workers who've been struggling for the last 15 months. And it's gonna be NoMa Bid and the leadership, working with government and others throughout the community that help get us to that place where recovery actually happens, where people start to come out in the communities on sidewalk cafes and are reconnecting with more regularity. We're also gonna need to make sure that when the economy opens back up finally, that it has the infusion of support, financial and otherwise, so that everybody feels fully reinvigorated. I know we can do this together, and it won't happen without the values of support that we've already been receiving from the NoMa Bid. But I look forward to continuing to work with you all the way we have in the past to get $100 million in grants to businesses throughout the District of Columbia. The way we have to bring all those millions of dollars from the federal government CARES Act and getting that into the hands of our businesses, getting that into the hands of our residents and our workers. And as hard as it's been over the last 15 months, I am inspired to know that with the help of the NoMa Bid, we're gonna get there together. So again, thank you for everything you all have done. I appreciate the focus that you all have had in helping us to recover, to reconnect, and reinvigorate.
What an uplifting message, and it was great to hear the background noise that truly the city is lively. As Councilmember McDuffie noted, the success of the NoMa Bid is truly rooted in great partnerships. And we look forward to our continued collaborations with Councilmember McDuffie, Councilmember Charles Allen, as well as with all of the elected officials who represent the District of Columbia. 2021 marks the 14th anniversary of the NoMa Bid. And earlier this year, we bid farewell to our longtime president and my good friend, Robin Eve Jasper. During her decade of leadership, Robin Eve helped grow NoMa into the vibrant and welcoming community that it is today. We thank her for her incredible contributions, including the delivery of great parks and green spaces to this formerly park deficient area by establishing the NoMa Parks Foundation, the BID sister organization, which she continues to lead and work in partnership with DC government agencies. As we said goodbye to one great leader, the BID welcomed its next president and CEO, Maura Brophy, who seamlessly took over the helm in February. For those of you who have not yet had the opportunity to meet her, let me just say that she brings the perfect combination of knowledge, skills, and passion needed to continue advancing the BID's strong legacy of creating a community that lifts up and offers opportunities for all. Maura has spent her entire career in DC, working on issues related to housing, transportation, and the economy, and has a unique appreciation for the value of coalition building, having worked in both community-focused and business-driven organizations. It's my pleasure to turn this meeting over to her, Maura, for the President's report. Please join me in welcoming her.
Thank you, Brig, for that kind introduction. It's great to be here with all of you today. To those of you who I have not yet had a chance to meet, I look forward to getting to know you very soon. Before I get started, I'd like to share one reminder and invite all members of the NoMa Bid to take a moment to vote in this year's election. You should have received an email this morning with login credentials and ballot information from the email address you see at the bottom of your screen, which is invitations@mail.electionbuddy.com. If for any reason you didn't receive or can't find this email, please contact Jesse London at jlondon@nomabid.org. He's also listed on the screen and is standing by to assist so that you can submit your votes. Results from the election will be posted on the NoMa Bid website by Monday, May 17th. Now, let's dive in. Let me start by saying how excited I am to be here and to have the opportunity to help NoMa chart its course for the future. I come to this role with a lot of enthusiasm and with a big vision for this neighborhood. I want to echo the optimism we've heard from all of our speakers. I too am buoyed by the resilience the NoMa community has demonstrated during the pandemic, and I remain focused as we look to NoMa's future while reflecting upon the highlights, achievements, and growth we've seen in the past year. 2020 began as a year full of promise for NoMa, with robust construction activity, exciting retail openings, a calendar full of bid-sponsored events, activities, and art installations, and the anticipated opening of Eliott Tanner Park, NoMa's newest and largest park. And then came COVID. As the pandemic swept through the city, NoMa was quick to react and respond. Local businesses showed their entrepreneurial chops by expanding takeout options, shifting inventory to sell essentials, and even revamping operations to manufacture PPE. The bid acted swiftly too, redirecting resources to support NoMa's residents and businesses. Our coronavirus resource webpage, which was updated daily, became a go-to source for health alerts, financial assistance, and updated information on NoMa business operations. As restaurants increased levels of carryout, the bid expanded its number of pickup drop-off zones, allowing customers and delivery drivers to safely and efficiently collect their orders from businesses. 5 local restaurants expanded their sidewalk cafe seating, while the bid assisted with permitting and supplied outdoor heaters as the weather turned colder. When the mayor organized a citywide PPE distribution effort, the bid distributed 143,000 face masks, hundreds of bottles of hand sanitizer, and dozens of drums of cleaning agents to more than 200 NoMa businesses. As the pandemic wore on, NoMa continued to prove its resilience. Construction projects progressed, new businesses opened their doors, and new residents continued to move into the neighborhood, including those of the Lexicon, the first condo project to deliver in the NoMa bid. In 2021, potential residents will have additional options to purchase homes in NoMa as the Tribeca and Eckington Yards projects deliver more than 300 condos collectively. Overall, residential construction continues at a rapid pace and at a scale that will reshape the neighborhood. By year's end, more than 12,000 residents lived in NoMa, with another 3,500 new residents expected to move in over the next 2 years. When they arrive, they'll find even more parks and public spaces to enjoy. To the excitement of the neighborhood, the bid's sister organization, the NoMa Parks Foundation, purchased the parcel of land directly across the street from Swampoodle Park at 3rd and L Streets Northeast. Construction is expected to begin later this year for the delivery of the newest NoMa Park in early 2022. Thanks to our 10-person in-house ambassador team, these parks receive daily maintenance, seasonal lawn care, and snow removal for everyone's year-round enjoyment. Our ambassadors are essential workers in every sense of the word, and throughout the pandemic, they've worked tirelessly to keep NoMa clean and safe. Last year, we were pleased to be able to upgrade the ambassador workspace and relocate them from a mobile unit into the first floor of 1200 First Street Northeast, the same building as the bid's office. Their new suite is equipped with lockers, a kitchenette, and conference tables for team meetings. We're also particularly excited to offer our ambassadors a new benefit in 2021, a 100% tuition reimbursement towards the completion of an associate's degree or professional certification. This effort is born of the bid's commitment to the advancement of all of its team members, and it's a benefit we're very proud to provide. Not technically an employee of the bid, but definitely a member of the bid's team is Dr. Amy Angell. Amy is the founder of the H3 project, which the bid had initially contracted with for a 60-day outreach initiative for persons experiencing homelessness in NoMa. Due to her success in helping individuals find housing and connect to support services, the bid extended her contract and has partnered with Amy for more than a year now. Amy and the H3 project staff work 7 days a week, even throughout the pandemic, filling what we see as a gap in services provided by other social service agencies. Amy and her team develop individualized action plans, seek temporary and permanent housing placements, and connect people to additional opportunities. In 2020, successes were many and meaningful. They included 34 housing matches, 26 housing move-ins, and 46 reunifications with family members, just to cite a few examples. We are grateful to Amy and her team for their ongoing work and perseverance during the pandemic, a time when need grew and shelter capacity was limited. As we begin to turn a corner in the pandemic and look ahead to the future, the BID is looking forward to the release of a new strategic plan that will guide the organization's work over the next 5 years. Not only that, but the plan will allow us to position NoMa for continued growth for the next 10, 15, 20 years and beyond, given the much longer term trajectory this neighborhood is on. I believe very strongly that given our healthy mix of residents and businesses, parks and public spaces, NoMa is well positioned to be a post-pandemic neighborhood of choice. With the continued improvements to the neighborhood in the form of development, open space, increased connectivity, the neighborhood that many workers will return to, hopefully soon, will be even more vibrant than it was when they left. We look forward to reinvigorating NoMa as we continue to reimagine its future. To help further the conversation about reinvigorating NoMa, we're pleased to be joined by a panel of experts. I'd now like to turn the meeting over to Mike Ponticelli. Mike is a NoMa BID board member and the co-founder and partner at BISNOW. We are thankful to have him with us to moderate today's panel discussion on why NoMa is poised for a post-pandemic boom. I'll let Mike introduce our distinguished panel, but I'd like to say thank you to each panelist in advance for joining us to share your expert advice. The mic is all yours, Mike.
Thank you, Maura, and hello, everyone. I'm really grateful to be here today. We have a phenomenal panel for you today. Our title of this panel is Reinvigorating NoMa, Why NoMa is Poised for a Post-Pandemic Boom. We have 5 panelists today. We have Eliott Ferguson of Destination DC, Tracey Hadden Lowe of the Brookings Institution, Yesim Taylor of the DC Policy Center, and Mike Hickok and Yolanda Cole, new NoMa residents, tenants of Hickok Cole. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Good.
Hey. Awesome. Welcome. Well, as a matter of opening accolades, I'd also like to thank our chairman of the board of directors, Brig Bunker. Thank you, Brig. Thank you, Maura, and welcome. We're really excited to see your term as president. And thank you to Representative Norton. In case Representative Norton's still listening, thank you, Representative Norton. We're really excited for DC to become a state. That's awesome. Our panelists today, our first panelist, Eliott Ferguson of Destination DC. Eliott, in a sentence or two, for anyone who might not know what Destination DC is or does, what is Destination DC and what does it do?
Very good question, and happy to be here. You know, Destination DC is the organization that really focuses on economic development, specifically tied to visitors that are coming to Washington, be it the domestic traveler, the international traveler, as well as conventions, large congresses that might meet in the convention center. We're totally different from Events DC, which is quasi-government, whereas Destination DC is private nonprofit and funded 80% by hotel tax, less than 1%, and by membership. So that's primarily our goal.
So Eliott, I'm going to start with you, and then I'm going to go through our panel. So Eliott, Destination DC, tourism and conventions is it's a tide that lifts all of our boats. Everyone in Washington benefits directly or indirectly from Washington as a tourism and destination center. When is tourism, conventions, and related economic activity going to return to pre-pandemic levels?
The $90 million question. You know, I think that's, you know, the thing about what we've been dealing with this pandemic, and I've been in DC for 20 years. I moved here in December 2001, right after 9/11. When that, SARS, the sniper, anthrax, 6 government shutdowns, January 6th, and of course, what we're dealing with now. This is something that's happened globally, and it has affected me and my peers and the global community. Right now, as we look at recovery, We're looking at the domestic market returning as early as next year. It took us about 10 years to recover after 9/11, so we don't anticipate that being the case in this particular instance, even though we're keeping our fingers crossed that we'll have a chance to recover the international market. Now, the meetings market will be a little different. We hope that will start recovering as early as next year, but it's really predicated on a lot of things in which we're still currently working on. The one thing I always say is whatever I say on Monday, it might change by Friday simply because the dynamics continue to change, including the fact that the mayor has reopened the city, which is a good thing for us.
So, Eliott, tourism, conventions, that's a very publicly visible part of what Destination DC does. But Destination DC, to your introduction, is an economic development entity, and that's a huge part of your mission. How does Destination DC support economic development in DC broadly, and how does NoMa fit in to those efforts?
Yeah, absolutely. When we look at this industry, it's easy to take it for granted because people automatically assume that everyone wants to come to Washington. And the reality is we're the 8th most visited city in the US, especially by the international market. And anyone can guess as to who's 1 through 7. That's always shocking to the local community. They don't understand, or they did not understand, primarily the importance of promoting and marketing our destination, the diversity of Washington as a city. I think it's easy and it's easy to assume that people know that we've got phenomenal monuments, memorials, and museums, and the federal experience is a reason to come to Washington. But what we focus on are the things in which people are shocked about when they look at coming to a city like Washington. How green we are, the architecture, the neighborhoods, the restaurant scene, sporting events, theater, nightlife, and the list goes on and on. And as we look at a neighborhood like NoMa, I always think about what has changed in the last 20 years that I've been here. And the other reality is that when you have a 24-hour experience, which is tied to people physically living in an area, it makes a world of difference in terms of how that area is perceived. And I can tell you that from experience moving to Chinatown, as we did about 17 years ago versus today. So the fact that NoMa physically has such a large presence, international presence, people physically living there, coupled with great restaurants, international restaurants, and all the things in which Mara referenced earlier, that's a positive opportunity to host visitors. Of course, transportation plays a huge role with Metro, and of course, the walkability from NoMa to other parts of the city. That's what we're banking on. That's what visitors want to experience, especially the international visitor, and that's how we continue to promote NoMa as a part of the Washington experience.
And Eliott, would a $10 billion redevelopment of Union Station help and facilitate tourism and foot traffic in NoMa?
Maura and I were talking about that earlier this week in our introductory call, and I'll tell you, as a guy that lives on Capitol Hill that passes through down Mass Avenue every single day, all of the components, Union Station as a entity is a phenomenal asset to Washington, D.C. for conventions that are looking at unique experiences for those large major events, as well as, of course, individuals wanting to come into Washington, which we encourage no one to drive if they're looking at coming into Washington, but either take the fly into the city and then use public transportation. And let's just face it, Union Station is that option. It's such a diverse and rich opportunity for us to promote not only the majesty and the architecture of the space, but also the fact that it welcomes people from all over the world as people are traveling up and down the East Coast corridor coming into a city like Washington. So that development is music to our ears and something in which we will be able to capitalize on as we promote DC.
Folks in the audience, please send in your questions, and time allowing, we'll ask them to our panelists. So please send in your questions. You have a message bar right there to the right. Next, Tracey Hadden of the Brookings Institution. Tracey, good afternoon. And as by way of a quick introduction, Brookings is one of the most respected and venerated institutions in Washington. It's actually one of those things that makes you think about what the business of Washington is. But for the uninitiated, what is Brookings Institution? And then if you could as well, give us a clue as to the book you're working on and what is place governance?
Sure. Thanks, Mike. Yeah. So given Brookings' role in Washington, D.C., it may be a little confusing how I ended up there, but here I am. So Brookings is a think tank that, and our role is to do original research that is understandable, digestible, and usable by an audience of policy and practitioners, and that is freely available to them in order to inform their work. So what I'm working on at Brookings is directly related to what y'all do every day at the NoMa Bid. We are writing a book about what's happening in place governance right now, both in terms of the opportunities and the challenges. And what we're looking at is places like NoMa that have been able to catalyze tremendous growth by using a place-based approach to bring a lot of change to a very small area over a short period of time. But what we're looking at in this book is what have been the hiccups along the way for place governance in trying to achieve inclusive growth, and what innovations moving forward can places like NoMa use in order to move to place governance 2.0. So, for example, right now, the NoMa bid, like every bid in the District of Columbia, is a bid that is controlled by the property owners and primarily commercial real estate owners in NoMa. But as additional condo development comes to the NoMa area, one question that NoMa is going to be facing is how can those owners and those residents get involved in the governance of NoMa as a place, and how can they join the existing NoMa stakeholders as collaborators in creating and managing a really wonderful neighborhood to be in.
So what are the keys to the game? I mean, that sound, the way you put it, it sounds so wonderful. It sounds like we'd all be working together. But what are the keys to the game to unlock economic growth through place governance?
It's messy. is one of the main takeaways of our book, which is that there is no one perfect model, and there's no one perfect mechanism for achieving inclusive growth, and that what's really necessary actually is to create as many forums as possible for what Eleanor Ostrom called cheap talk, which is basically ways for different stakeholders who have different priorities and incentives and problems to create ways for those stakeholders to air those concerns, to hear each other, and then to work together to create solutions in settings where the stakes are low and where there's room to innovate, to create new solutions, to try out new partnerships without high penalty. So
the NoMa bid, one of our, the things that we're so proud of is the NoMa Parks Foundation. What is the opportunity for NoMa and our public spaces to factor into this vision that you lay out?
That is a great question, Mike. And looking at how public space is managed is a big piece of what we're looking at in this book. So I think going forward, the challenge for NoMa is going to be that there are a lot of different constituencies that use public space in NoMa and that want both to belong in that public space, but want to feel like that public space belongs to them. So navigating that and the conflicts that arise, because everything can't belong to everyone at the same time, is particularly tricky. And I think that the bid is trying out a lot of the right things in terms of community engagement and in terms of trying to bring as many folks to the table as possible to have this cheap talk, but that the more people come to NoMa and the more we kind of enter the post-pandemic phase, the more complicated some of these issues are going to get, given that our region is very likely to see a big surge in homelessness at the same time that it's seeing a surge in returning tourists, at the same time as it's seeing office workers start to return to work, and at the same time as it's seeing home buyers want to take advantage of low interest rates to snap up those NoMa condos.
Tracey, that's very interesting. My next question is, we talk about NoMa being quite central, and it is. If you took a map of Washington, D.C., NoMa's sort of in the middle. But we are central in another sense, not in terms of the greater Washington, but also, central to a number of very interesting neighborhoods. We have border neighborhoods to our north and east, Union Market, a tremendous amount of stuff happening in Union Market. Union Station, a $10 billion redevelopment plan below us, but even without the $10 billion, Union Station still is quite dynamic with, lots of activity. And then to our west, Mount Vernon Triangle and tremendous amounts of development, housing being delivered, and other things. So NoMa is quite central. What's the opportunity for NoMa and for the NoMa bid to interact with our border neighborhoods to unlock value and to create that kind of collaboration you're talking about?
So I do think that there is a huge opportunity here, especially when you look at some of the bigger picture infrastructure issues that NoMa is facing in terms of Dave Thomas Circle, in terms of how access to the New York Avenue Metro Station actually works, that there are some really big issues on the table here in terms of safety, in terms of just basic efficiency and flow. And that these are going to be some of the issues that will really be telling for NoMa in terms of how the place is really going to function as we kind of come into the post-pandemic period. I mean, I'm sure everyone has seen some of the pictures of some of the crazy traffic incidents that are happening around the city right now, where cars are jumping off the curb and winding up in places where they really should not be. And that is not the kind of thing that we want to see happening around NoMa as things start to open back up. So looking at some of these infrastructure issues at the intersection of NoMa, there's an opportunity for NoMa to partner with these surrounding neighborhoods to tell a story of shared benefit, that getting some of these infrastructure changes to happen will be something that benefits not just NoMa, but that will benefit NoMa's neighbors, and that NoMa can use its unique set of relationships and its unique position of influence to collaborate with the voices from these neighborhoods to get some of these changes to actually happen.
Yeah. No, that's so fascinating. I mean, the NoMa story is interesting on these, many levels, but with these border neighborhoods that we have and who we have near us, there's definitely value there to unlock. And as we unlock that in years to come, it'll be so interesting to see how all these pieces work together. Yesim Taylor, DC Policy Center. We have some amazing thinkers today on this panel. Yesim, what is the DC Policy Center? What do you do there?
Thank you, Mike. We are a small, independent, nonprofit organization focused on doing research and advancing policies for a brighter and stronger economy in the District of Columbia. And a lot of our board members and supporters are also friends of NoMa and NoMa Bid, and we are really excited that we have been able to work with NoMa Bid and to understand both the bid area and the surrounding neighborhoods better in the last year.
So NoMa as a neighborhood is like a fascinating case study of how investment spurs economic development. I mean, it's amazing to think that a $153 million or so investment in 1997, the NoMa Gallaudet Metro Station and related investments, $153 million in 97. It's resulted in over $1.2 billion worth of tax revenue since 2007. So clearly, there was a phenomenal investment. Washington, D.C. just got a bunch of one-time federal money. Might we invest part of these funds to spur similar types of economic development investments?
Not only we should consider it, I don't think we have many other options. As Congresswoman Norton mentioned, there's just from the latest legislative action, we're getting $2.3 billion in direct fiscal aid, plus funds for education and housing. Just the latest legislative action is $2.8 billion. But guess what? We're going to have to spend it over 3 years and it will disappear. So if you think of this money and you say, okay, we have 3 years to spend it, we'll spread it over 3 years, that's like about 10% of the district's revenue. So if we put this money towards recurring programs, and at the end of the 3 years, the money disappears, the district's budget will be facing a shortfall of nearly $800 million. So if we do that, we have no option but raise taxes in the future. What we really need to do with the federal aid is to invest it in projects that are one-time and that can spur economic development. Even without these investments, if we think of our current economic forecasts for the city, right now we are facing a structural deficit. Our revenues over the next 4 years is going to be about $150 million less than our spending. Even if we did nothing, even if we repeated 2021 budget over and over and over again over the next 4 years. So economic development and the consequent tax revenue is absolutely needed for the city just to balance its budget today. And we also want to increase our spending to meet additional needs in the city. So I think it would be a useful exercise to go through what kind of investments can be made to improve outcomes and sort of restart growth in the city while addressing some of the inequities. Investing in attracting more businesses to the city, for example, will matter because we're already seeing high vacancy rates, and we know how much commercial real property contribute to the district's budget. So having some grants there to attract businesses seems to me a very important use. Investment in infrastructure, including the Union Station, is another good idea. But between now and the time the council takes over the budgets review, it will be spending our time really well thinking of all the other ideas we can promote for these kinds of investments.
So I feel like I'm talking about this Union Station thing like it's the only show in town, but it is quite interesting, and it is quite proximate to NoMa. So Yesim, how would just like think it through a little bit, and riff with us if you don't mind for a moment. How does that development benefit a neighborhood like NoMa adjacent to the north?
Oh, multiple levels. First of all, the city functions as a unit. So improvements anywhere in the city make the city more attractive to workers, residents, and businesses, and benefiting all neighborhoods. But a neighborhood like NoMa, which has, unlike many other neighborhoods in the region, in the city, has successfully mixed residential use with office use. So things that increase the attractiveness of the city will increase the attractiveness of NoMa and help support its economic base. So that's, at a minimum. Second, investments in the city necessarily improves asset valuations and therefore contributes to the tax base, which is then spent on things that NoMa residents, as well as the rest of the city, benefits. More investment in schools benefits NoMa residents who have children. More investment in infrastructure benefits NoMa residents who live in the area. More investment in businesses attracts more workers who come and spend their dollars in NoMa. So I think that economic growth, no matter where it is, benefits every neighborhood. Here's another way to think about it. Imagine an investment in Ward 7 or 8, creating job opportunities for district residents who are furthest away from such opportunities. That reduces, that basically opens up a whole new world for the District of Columbia, where the needs profile of the population changed completely and allows the city to invest even more in future projects. So these are at least 3 ways I can think of it.
Mike, I'd love to build on that a little bit, if I may.
Please.
I think I think that everything that Yesim said is correct, but I think that we also, in this moment, with the American Rescue Plan, but with everything that we've gone through with COVID and that we've learned, I think that we also need to start thinking more creatively and expansively about how we define inclusive growth and the mechanisms by which we think about achieving it. Because for a resident of the District of Columbia, the purpose of the benefit of inclusive growth, it should not just come indirectly through spending. As we're thinking about things like strengthening the district's workforce, incubating new small businesses, real estate investment opportunities, building the asset base that Yesim was referring to. Those are all opportunities to touch the lives of district residents. And there are so many creative possibilities that go just beyond raising tax revenue and then distributing and spending it to include the people of the District of Columbia in what we're investing in and how we're growing. And so that's just the one footnote I wanted to add there.
I want to get back to this, and I want to kind of double click on this a little bit more. But I also want to turn over first to our other two panelists, Mike Hickok and Yolanda Cole. You are brilliant architects. You're such a phenomenal real estate firm that's worked with worked in so many neighborhoods and with so many prominent developers. But NoMa was your favorite neighborhood. It had to have been because you moved your headquarters there. So after 20 years in Georgetown, a great neighborhood by any imagination, Georgetown is a great place, but you made the move to NoMa. Why'd you make the move? And please, tell us, how can we, why'd you make the move?
Well, you're right. 20 years in Georgetown is a long time. We grew there enormously. We grew from being, 30 people to the 100 people we are today. And we loved it. But we also were restricted by the particular piece of real estate we were in. And we just needed another opportunity. And we've been searching for probably 5 years. And Yolanda and I have gone to every cool up and coming neighborhood in the whole city. And 5 years ago, we became interested in NoMa and Union Market. The building that we're moving into is 301 N Street, which is kind of right on the seam between NoMa and Union Market. It's funny, we looked at that 5 years ago. It was under different ownership. There wasn't an opportunity for us. And so when we came back to it, it's probably been almost 2 years, Folger Pratt had bought the property. They were doing development around it. We got into a conversation with them. And lo and behold, that's where we're going to be moving in about 6 weeks, maybe 8. But in any case, we're moving there soon, and we just couldn't be happier. It's the right balance for us. We're not, if anybody knows us, we're not a sort of buttoned up sort of K Street kind of firm. So we needed to be in a neighborhood that was appropriate both emotionally and culturally for our firm. And as I said, we've got 100 designers, 100 creative architects and designers in our firm. So this just felt like the right place for us to be. And when the opportunity came up, those of you who don't know this particular building, it's an old 3-story industrial building. You'll recognize it by the sawtooth industrial skylights that you see when you drive by. So it's unique in the market, and it will make a unique space for us. And it's just such an exciting neighborhood to be in. We can't wait to get there to begin to sort of knit ourselves into the neighborhood the same way we knit ourselves into Georgetown over all those years.
Yeah, I think Mike's saying we're cool and we needed a cool place to go.
Well, no one looks at me and says, "Oh, they're cool," but it's okay.
No, you are cool, Mike. So Yolanda, another part of Hickok Cole's cool factor. You designed the NPR building. It's a beautiful building, and we're quite proud of having NPR in NoMa. Tell us a little bit about how you, as architects, think about NoMa from a design and experience perspective.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess NPR is like one of our heartfelt projects. We know them, we've listened to them all our lives, and it really put our firm on the map, and certainly in NoMa as a gateway project. And that's how they looked at it, as being a gateway project, and wanted to spur new development in the area, which it absolutely did. So from there, we've designed a number of buildings in and around the area, and hope to do more. I mean, we're in the real estate business. We like development, we like people, we like mixed use, we like walkability, all those things that attracted us to that area. And I think we feel like we're kind of smack in the middle of where the action is at this point in time. We were in Georgetown for many years. I live on 14th Street, so I was going west, and now I'm going about the equal distance going east. And as the development has moved eastward, I would say in the past decade, most of our young people live toward the east. We mapped it out and looked at all of that. I think it's harder for our more senior people in and around the region who live more at the edges. But we fully intend to integrate ourselves into the messy integration that was referred to earlier of the neighborhood, as we do with the particularly the art world that we're already well connected to. So we would like to design more in NoMa for sure. So we can contribute to that, in our way as architects.
So Mike and Yolanda, you're presumably you're very high-ranking officials at Hickok and Cole, because it's called Hickok and Cole. But even still, these things are not autocracies. You probably had to build up some support within the troops for the move. How did that garnering support within your employees for this new location go? Were there specific elements you're like, hey, listen, we got to do this because of this reason? What was it like building support for the relocation?
Yeah, there was a time when we did get to make all the decisions, but that doesn't seem to be the way it is anymore. You always have to bring your staff along. So dictatorially say, hey, we're moving next week to another part of the city, never works very well. You're right to note there's so much housing around. Clearly more housing than is walkable from our Georgetown office. So that aspect was not difficult. Georgetown's not being served by a metro, and now we are served by metro, makes a huge difference. So in a lot of ways, it wasn't a hard sell. And then the building itself, of course, is so beguiling that we'll certainly have no difficulty having people be happy there. But there are concerns. There are concerns about NoMa. There's concerns about the travel from our office to the front door of the metro. It's not always, doesn't always feel completely comfortable. And several people have brought that up. But on the other hand, there's also people who said, oh, I'm just going to go rent an apartment right down there. I'll get out of my old lease. I'll go to a new place. So there's a lot of mobility on that, on the younger people's side in particular.
So you mentioned travel and transportation. I have a number of questions from the audience. I'll get to as many as I can, time allowing. Our first question is from a prestigious asker. NoMa Bid President Emeritus Robin Eve Jasper asks, would there be value to investing in transportation options and facilities that would enable people to get out of their cars at the district border rather than drive all the way into neighborhoods like NoMa? And Eliott, I'm going to toss it to you because Destination DC, economic development, everything has to do in our region with transportation. So I'll throw the question to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Robin was on our board, so she knows how I feel about that. There's always that concern in regards to the visitor experience coupled with people that physically live in Washington, D.C. The infamous rush hour during cherry blossom season and all of the visitors that are in the city, whereas I'm looking at it and saying, this is great, and everybody else is like, oh my God, this is terrible. And the reality is, we don't have the land mass to really facilitate what I'm trying to accomplish, which is take us from 23 million visitors to the city to well beyond that number, as well as look at the 1,000+ people that are physically moving to Washington on a regular basis, especially if everyone is physically driving a car. It's not a good mix for a variety of environmental reasons, as well as other personal reasons. It's just not necessarily the best experience in terms of being in Washington as a destination. So what Robin is referencing is absolutely what we would recommend as we look at the continuous revitalization and growth of Washington as a city.
I think in that neighborhood in particular, the circle at Florida Avenue, New York Avenue, just has to be solved. It's a choke point from every single direction.
Yeah. It's like one of those things, like every single person in Washington gets an emotional reaction from that circle. There's like nothing that is that ubiquitously emotionally impactful as thinking about that intersection.
I think this is the first time I heard it called
so true.
Wendy's, the Wendy's, which is, but you're absolutely right. It is a tough circle.
So, okay. Question for Tracey, also from the audience, question from Monica. Can Tracey talk about how inclusive growth fits within transportation access, particularly within NoMa?
That's actually the perfect follow-up question to what we were just talking about, right? Because, a huge piece of inclusive growth is making sure that accessibility is really high, and that it's equally high for all kinds of people. And transit is a huge component of that. And I think, what we're seeing right now, with where DC is that prior to Congress acting, we were really at a kind of do or die moment regarding making sure that WMATA was going to make it through this crisis. And now that Congress has acted to, in large part, make sure that WMATA can get through this hole, it is really important that beyond the actions of the agency itself, that all of us as governance actors do our part to make sure that Metro feels safe, that we're all using it, and that we all know how to use it, so that we're having a safe experience. Because transit access is going to be the key here, and thinking bigger than just Metro Rail. This applies to NoMa, but this is also true for the entire District of Columbia. Making investments in priority bus corridors is the next step to making sure that we have the right mobility infrastructure to support inclusive growth. NoMa has done a great job in terms of making sure that it's a place that feels very bikeable and very walkable. There are some issues to resolve, in terms of like some key intersections and connections, but the bigger picture, I think, for mobility in the city is to look at priority bus corridors and to make sure, of course, also that people can transfer between the bus and the Metro Rail system for free.
Our next question is for Yesim. Yesim, you think about investment, you think about infrastructure. I know in a global sense, and I mean, you study these things not only within Washington but also within the context of other cities across the world. What would you counsel Washington D.C. to prioritize or think about or keep in mind as Washington makes investments in our infrastructure?
I think investments in infrastructure and other programs should be focused on future prosperity for the city and inclusive growth, as Tracey mentioned. So let's think of what makes the city attractive, competitive, and a place where people want to live in. It's for businesses, it's proximity to high quality workforce. And this means that we have to find ways to invest in our workforce, especially to create a local talent pipeline that's racially more diverse, better understand the life outcomes of children and youth who leave the DC's public school systems, and make district's own labor force more attractive to businesses. As you know, quite a number of jobs open in the district every year, barring what happened last year. our research shows that only one in 5 of those new job openings go to district residents that were born in the District of Columbia. So the city is really good at attracting talent from elsewhere. I arrived from Turkey, but we're not very good at nurturing our own DC-born residents. So this is an incredible opportunity for the district to invest in that type of talent pipeline. So that's one way to think of infrastructure is our labor force. I think it's really important for the district to invest in closing the digital divide. If you remember when the schools first opened online, the types of struggles people had accessing learning, that even continued into the fall semester. That also affects businesses and entrepreneurs. In the District of Columbia, more businesses opened during the pandemic than the year before and the year before. So there's a lot of new exciting ideas. And these are the businesses that can eventually turn into brick and mortar businesses and take space in buildings that really have a lot of space. But most of these are online businesses right now, and access to a strong internet infrastructure makes a difference between a sustainable business opportunity and a better life for a household and one that cannot sustain because it doesn't have access to infrastructure. And importantly, the city should really learn from its past. We had a pretty successful tax increment financing program that not only helped NoMa, but all other investments around the city. I think investing a small portion of the federal funds into an economic development budget that focuses on, bringing more businesses and increasing employment around the district for DC residents is very, very important. And using the tax regime and the tax incremental financing model to do that, to me, is a really, something we've done, we've tried, we've succeeded, and it worked for the District of Columbia. And lastly, I think in terms of inclusive growth, we really need to find ways to invest in entrepreneurs, our Black residents, our immigrant residents, our brown residents, and women entrepreneurs. They are removed from capital markets, not just financial capital, but even social capital. Having incubators that are particularly focused on minority-owned businesses, well, in the District of Columbia, I shouldn't say minority, Black and brown-owned businesses is really important. We haven't done a good job on that front so far, but we could learn from others that have done it and use some of the federal funding for those purposes.
So we have there it is. So we have just a moment left. So I'm going to go to each of our panelists, and here's what we're going to say. The subject of this panel is reinvigorating NoMa. Why NoMa is poised for a post-pandemic boom. I'm going to ask each of you, what is the thing that you are most excited for, the most reinvigorating thing that you're excited for to get out of this pandemic that you're looking forward to reconnecting with? And I'm going to go first. I am really excited to get this part of everyone's face back into communication, to be able to use smiles, frowns, quizzical looks, all this stuff that you communicate, all that nonverbal stuff that gets communicated there, to be able to use that again to connect with strangers and folks I pass on the street. That's what I'm excited for. And I think NoMa, you're going to see a lot of folks smiling to one another as we path each other in NoMa. Eliott, what are you excited for, my man?
I'm excited to see the combination of students, residents, visitors, and those coming in town for business, all walking, enjoying our city, enjoying NoMa, and at some point without masks, and just getting back to the business of doing what we love the most. Yesim said she's from Turkey. I love the fact that doing what we do, we have the opportunity to learn more about how alike we are in terms of travel than how different we are. And Washington is one of those great destinations to do that because we're such an international city.
I love it. Tracey, what are you excited for?
Well, but you mentioned earlier how centrally located NOMA is, and so it's a great place to meet up with friends from all over the region. I was born and raised in the district, and so the kids that I went to Wilson High School with are now living in every quadrant of the city and in Maryland and Virginia besides. NOMA is an awesome place for us all to meet up and to do fun group activities with our kids. And so what I'm looking forward to is when it's safe for REI and for the beer garden and whatnot to have big events where a crowd can be together. I'm really looking forward to seeing the smiling faces of the friends I've known my whole life and the next generation.
Have a beer first before you go to REI so that you're feeling a little more frisky when you go shopping. But that's amazing. Yesim, what are you most excited for?
Going back to the office. I can kill my children any day. And I really missed that being in the office. It's not just, being out of my house, but all the activity that goes with it, starting from walking my house to the metro, the physical exercise, the sort of the transaction costs of life that actually turns out to be so important for our mental health, being able to stop by and say hello to somebody. I miss being stuck in my car, I will tell you, or even on the metro. But I think that, when before times, I did have quite a number of meetings in NoMa, and I loved walking by the streets and popping into my favorite coffee shop or sandwich shop to grab lunch. I really am looking forward to doing that.
Mike Hickok, what are you excited for?
Well, it's a new neighborhood for us, and I just can't wait to explore it. I mean, there's so much there that I don't know. We experience a neighborhood primarily from our cars. Once you get out of your car and start walking, I want to walk all the way up to Gallaudet. I've never walked on Gallaudet's campus. I want to see the whole area, and I've just got to get out and walk, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yolanda Cole, we're going to be bumping into you left and right. You're welcome to the neighborhood. What are you excited for?
Moving into our fabulous new office space and seeing all of our people all in one room. I mean, it's so hard for all of us trying to manage and business and with lots of people, and particularly in a creative business where the big thing is being in the room with people and exchanging ideas. So really just getting back to seeing our people is the biggest thing. And of course, I like to shop, I like to eat, do all those things. So I'm looking forward to that for sure. And I'm pretty sure all of our young people are. They've already been, kind of exploring the neighborhood, probably ahead of us. So we'll be seeing you all there.
Well, as you could take away from our panelists today and from our other speakers, NOMA is poised for so much exciting growth and development within NOMA, within the greater context of Washington, D.C. This is the place to be. It's just such an inspiring and exciting chapter we all have to look forward to. So I want to thank our panelists. Thank you so much for making this time and for sharing your wonderful thoughts. And I want to turn it back to the president of the NOMA bid, Mara Brophy.
Thank you to all of the panelists and participants for your insightful comments and thoughtful questions. As I mentioned before, the bid has begun to think ahead to the future through the development of our new strategic plan, which we will be releasing this fall. It's validating to know that many of the ideas discussed today are reflected in the guiding principles of this plan. Among these guiding principles is community, as NOMA is bolstered by the strength and contributions of those in ours. Each year, through our Partner of the Year awards, the NOMA bid spotlights the extraordinary efforts of those individuals and organizations who go above and beyond to make our neighborhood flourish. It is my honor to introduce you to our first award winner, the DC Department of Public Works, which is the NOMA bid's 2020 Public Sector Partner of the Year. As some of you know, the Department of Public Works, DPW for short, provides municipal services in two distinct program areas. The first, environmental services and solid waste management, and the second, parking enforcement. Both contribute to making district streets and public spaces clean, safe, attractive, and accessible. In 2020, DC's DPW team delivered uncompromising levels of service and attention in NOMA, in spite of facing the truly unprecedented combination of a global pandemic, a budget crisis, weeks of public disruption due to First Amendment demonstrations, and more. The DPW team responded quickly, adapted on the fly, and engaged with the bid's every request. For this, we say thanks to the team comprised of Chris Geldhart, Christine Davis, Michael Carter, Anthony Crispino, Johnny Gaithier, and Valentina Ukuma, who make up the DC Department of Public Works NoMa Bid Partnership Team. It's my privilege to present you with this award.
Good afternoon. I'm Christine Davis, Interim Director of the Department of Public Works. On behalf of the 1,600 DPW employees, I want to thank the NoMa Bid for this honor, naming the Department of Public Works as your Public Partner of the Year. Before the COVID-19 health emergency, DPW delivered most of your core municipal services. We worked closely with bids, hosting quarterly meetings to support bid operations that maintain the beauty and cleanliness of some of our most historic commercial corridors. When the district became impacted by the COVID-19 virus, many of our services were suspended. DPW immediately adjusted our personnel and operations to provide essential services to ensure the health and safety of our personnel and residents. At that time, we established a weekly conference call with bids. We worked to have bid employees classified as essential workers. We coordinated with bids for the placement of porta potties, and we increased trash collection services around large homeless encampments. Last summer, amid the health emergency, the district experienced weeks of First Amendment demonstrations after the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis. Again, DPW worked to support bid efforts to protect many of the small businesses that are so important to the vitality of our city. We helped to coordinate the installation of plywood. We cleaned the demonstration areas of impacted commercial corridors, including the historic Black Lives Matter Plaza, and we provided roll-offs for the collection of plywood. We removed litter cans to prevent them from being used as projectiles, and we replaced litter can liners for bids. The NoMa Bid is a leader in the bid community. The leadership is active on the weekly calls and consistently provides our agency with guidance and feedback so that we can remain nimble and continue to deliver high-quality services. This recognition, the Public Partner of the Year Award, is received with the most sincere appreciation and with the knowledge that we will do more together in the months to come. Thank you.
Next, we will present the NoMa Bid's Private Sector Partner of the Year Award. This goes to Eric Shin, the founder and CEO of SEOULSPICE, a preeminent leader in NoMa's vibrant and growing culinary scene. A native of Atlanta with roots in Northeast DC, Eric's love for cuisine and community building were nurtured in his family's Korean restaurant and later his success in running an industry-leading marketing firm. Led by Eric's passion for food, design, and technology, his restaurant, SEOULSPICE, which opened its very first location in NoMa, shares our commitment to building strong communities. In 2020, SEOULSPICE was among the first NoMa businesses to pivot during the pandemic and meet residents and consumers with diverse bodega-style offerings, including groceries, cleaning, and hygiene products. In September, Eric agreed to serve on the bid's Community Strategic Planning Committee, where his insight and retail experience have been immensely valuable and greatly appreciated. We very much appreciate his time and many talents, as Eric is not only a full-time restaurantpreneur, but also performs with the National Symphony Orchestra. Congratulations, Eric, and please accept this award on behalf of the NoMa Bid.
Thank you. From the bottom of my heart, I'm really honored to be named a Pandemic Hero and Private Sector Partner of the Year. When I think of being a pandemic hero, it reminds me of something that my dad used to say all the time. He used to say that we're only as good as the people around us. Of course, he said it in Korean, but I've been really fortunate to be surrounded by amazing people during this very, very difficult time. As of March 19th, 124 restaurants in DC have closed and over 30,000 jobs have been lost. And when you think of New York and pizza, Philly and cheesesteak, DC and the half smoke, small business is a reflection of the soul of a city. And the SEOULSPICE team, Well, we're a reflection of the NoMa community. We're diverse, we're resilient, and we're brave. Our team is Black, we're white, Asian, gay, straight, deaf, and many of them can make kimchi that rivals my mom's. Food brings us together, and together we give each other the strength to persevere. I want to thank you again for honoring us as a pandemic hero and private sector partner of the year. And whether it's Korean barbecue or bringing you toilet paper, we'll always be committed to serving NoMa in any way that we can. I hope to see all of you soon. Thank you.
Now it's time to reveal the NoMa Bid's Community Partner of the Year award winner. Congratulations to Dr. Amy Angell, who founded the H3 Project to creatively address the issue of homelessness and human trafficking in Washington, D.C. Through previous work with other D.C. homeless agencies, Amy recognized a need that was not being met. Beginning in January 2020, the NoMa Bid contracted with the H3 Project to provide targeted support and outreach services to people in Camden, NoMa. From her very first days in the neighborhood, Dr. Angell has demonstrated the effectiveness of a tailored approach in achieving positive outcomes for individuals experiencing homelessness, even in the face of a pandemic. Amy, for your unwavering advocacy and commitment to meeting people where they are and helping them along their journey, we thank you. It is our honor to name you our 2020 Community Partner of the Year. Please accept this as a show of our appreciation for your amazing, often life-saving, and very human work.
Wow, very kind words. Thank you. I'm truly humbled to be the recipient of such a tremendous honor. As Maura mentioned, I founded the H3 Project on January 1st, 2020. Then this pandemic swept across the world. Life as we knew it changed for all of us, inclusive of those experiencing homelessness, who daily depend on a support system for survival. We've seen lives torn apart. This last year, there was a horrible fire in a NoMa encampment that, while thankfully did not harm anyone, left a level of destruction that's still being repaired. We've seen and heard about violence. We've had deaths. In the last 2 weeks alone, I've had 3 consumers I was working with pass. We've experienced a new level of desperation. But fortunately, we've also experienced hope and stronger partnerships. In some ways, this pandemic has brought many unprecedented opportunities. A chance for individuals estranged from their families to reconnect. Last year, the H3 Project helped 48 individuals reunite with family members across the United States. With the seriousness of COVID facing them, others decided it was time to change their trajectory and create a new roadmap for success. 12 decided to enter detox. 7 of these 12 continue to thrive in sober living environments. We have tried our best to refocus on what matters most. Of course, I could not do this work alone. We're all only so strong as our partnerships. And so I'm fortunate to have had incredible partnership with such as Melvin Smith from the Department of Human Services, Jordan Goley from the Department of Behavioral Health, and Monica Merck from the Deputy Mayor of Health and Human Services, all of which I can count on when faced with any situation that requires their expertise. Similarly, Officer Fernie Dennis from the Metropolitan Police Department and Officer Ann Russell from the Humane Rescue Alliance have both provided valued outreach assistance from a law enforcement angle. I would also like to thank the NoMa board, the NoMa ambassador team, and all the staff from the NoMa Bid team who I harass sometimes daily with questions and requests, especially Dave Webb, Daniel Hoagland, and Sherry Cunningham. Lastly, I'm especially grateful to those who believed in me and the H3 Project's mission from the very start. The H3 Project would not be where it is today without the encouragement and support of Demetrius Brown, Director of Security at Union Station, Beverly Swaim Staley from the Union Station Redevelopment Corporation, and of course, Rob and Eve Jasper, who from day one encouraged, supported, and believed in me and the mission of the H3 Project. While we're all sorry to see her retire, I have no doubt that her selected replacement, Maura Brophy, is the right person for the job. Thank you once again for this tremendous honor. Together we can all make a difference in homelessness. And I look forward to meeting all of you, hopefully in person, without having to wear masks in the very near future. Cheers.
This year, the NoMa Bid Board of Directors decided to create another award category to recognize individuals and businesses within and adjacent to the bid that made a difference to the community during the pandemic. I am pleased to share with you the names of our Pandemic Heroes Award winners who are being recognized for their adaptation, innovation, and support during this challenging and unprecedented past year. Congratulations to SEOULSPICE for creating a bodega to provide customers with essential items and for support of bid programming, to Red Bear Brewing Company, King Street Oyster Bar, Wonder Garden, Louse in Town, Sweet Science Coffee, Yoga NoMa, and New Box for your support of bid programming, including virtual events. To Holy Bones and its founder, artist Kelly Tolles, for successfully adapting the Powwow Annual Mural Festival to meet the safety protocols of the pandemic. To our 4 Wear a Mask artists, including Kelly Tolles, Trap Bob, Michelle Shiyu Chen, and the dynamic duo of Hannah and Lindy, otherwise known as Red Swan Walls, for contributing to the bid's effective and popular public awareness campaign. To Pepco and its dedicated team members, including Sean Brandt, who contributed to the beautiful mural painted by Red Swan Walls on the wall of its facility, which faces Alethea Tanner Park. And to Folger Pratt for the donation of your warehouse, which the bid used to distribute much needed personal protective equipment to NoMa businesses to help keep themselves, their employees, and their customers safe. We're excited to present each of you with these beautiful artworks, which the bid commissioned by the artists we're honoring today for our Wear a Mask public service campaign. May it serve as a reminder of how we all did our part to protect ourselves and each other and help the NoMa community recover and reconnect safely.
Thank you. I want to echo Mara's congratulations to all the NoMa Bid Award winners. When your nominations were submitted to the board, our approval was immediate and unanimous. We are fortunate to work with all of you. I did want to say that to Mike and Yolanda, Mike, who I think was talking about the intersection of Florida and New York, that is in progress. The changes are being made. The bid, as well as the Parks Foundation, are working closely with the city and its departments to redo that intersection. I just want to make sure that I mentioned that is happening and is in progress and moving forward at an expedited pace. Recover, reconnect, reinvigorate. Along with resiliency were the recurring themes of today's meeting. I want to remind everyone that the NoMa bid is no stranger to challenging times. Many of you know this story, but for those who don't, it's worth repeating. The NoMa bid is an organization which was founded during times of economic turbulence as the city was coming out of receivership. Over the years, including this past one, we continued to demonstrate that the economic vitality created by the combination of location, transit assets, and the diversity that characterizes this neighborhood buoys NoMa in good times and difficult ones. Contributing to NoMa's advantage is the combined experience and commitment of the bid staff, board members, and the executive committee, all of whom have done a tremendous job over the years to take advantage of opportunities and address challenges as they arise in a direct and timely manner. As the bid embarks upon a new strategic planning process to chart the course and future of NoMa over the next 5 years, we will continue to rise to the challenge, build upon the strength of the neighborhood, and seize opportunities to reinvigorate NoMa. We look forward to all of you joining us in this journey, and we thank you for being with us today. I will close with one final reminder, and that is to be sure to register your vote for NoMa bid board members. Voting will be open until 4 o'clock today. If you need assistance or did not receive an email with voting instructions, please email Jesse London at jlondon@nomabid.org. He's listed on the screen and is standing by to assist now and can resend your login credentials if needed. I hope everyone has a great afternoon, and I look forward to doing this meeting in person in 2022. I hope I see you all soon. Thank you.